Next, we have another amazing speaker and storyteller and another nonprofit women leader, Women in Voice, sharing her journey, her story on what she has done, how she did it, and why she started Women in Voice. Let me introduce Dr. Joanne Palmiter-Bajorek is the CEO and founder of Women in Voice, the international nonprofit empowering women and gender in voice tech. In 3 years, Women in Voice has scaled to 21 chapters in 15 countries with over 100 international ambassadors and is an official 501c3 nonprofit. Partnering with Google and Amazon at events around the world, Women in Voice is helping to shape the voice tech field to be more welcoming, inclusive, and intentional as it grows and flourishes. Please welcome Dr. Joanne.
Hello. It's great to
Hi,
be
Joanne.
here.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm doing well. Sorry to keep you waiting. I know you've been waiting for a long time. But yeah, that's how live events are. We are doing okay on time, not too behind. So I'll let you take the stage. Thank you, Joanne.
Wonderful. Well, it's wonderful to be right after Linda. And I'm going to try to share my screen. It looks like we've been having let's see how this works. There are two monitors. Okay, just a moment here. Give me just a second. Okay, and then if I Control L, I believe, can I get confirmation that you can see my screen?
Yes, Linda, we can see your screen and your slides are up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, it's wonderful to speak with everybody today. I'm very excited after these other talks to really delve deeper into the voice field and conversational AI. And this talk dovetails kind of conversational AI and jobs. So conversational AI jobs today and in the future. You just heard my intro, so that's a great place to start. I'll also just say that, let's see. Hi, my name is Joan. I'm based here in Seattle. I really have a two-pronged career that's going on that you'll certainly hear about today in this work, in this presentation. I have a PhD. I do research in the voice and conversational AI space. I have multiple publications that I'll be speaking about briefly, but also really the more I delved into conversational AI, natural language processing, kind of the future of what these tools look like. Also, really importantly, the social impact of this work and the importance of having lots of different people at the table. And so 3 years ago, I started Women in Voice, which is now a global nonprofit and a 501c3, and been featured at CES and worked previously at Nuance. I'm an Alexa champion amongst many other accolades that are great. But today, I really want to talk to you about three topics: voice and conversational AI, jobs in this sector, of which it is proliferating really fast. If you are thinking about pivoting, really consider my field, please. And also a lot about women in voice and the community that we are growing here. So, some people don't even know my field exists, but Mark Cuban does. There's no future that doesn't have ambient computing or voice activation. None. So when we think about the future, we're still building what that looks like and how we move forward. But even big investors see our space as really a fruitful place to be. So when I talk about voice, what does that actually mean? Is this a field? Hopefully you have heard or seen or even used daily. Siri, OK Google, Alexa devices are proliferating in the space. And we certainly see this as a hardware play, but also as the software evolves. And hopefully, if you have an iPhone, for example, seeing Siri evolve dramatically in each deployment and iteration. So this is what I'm talking about for an end customer experience. But when we really think about conversational AI, we're often thinking about a voice experience where the input is spoken language. We have some hardware and computing on the back end that's cloud, usually, and then the output being spoken language. But this is a really simplified example of what we're seeing in the ecosystem that both Linda and the speaker before were talking about, these integrated systems where we're seeing inputs that can be speech, they can be biometrics, they can be plenty of different things. The hardware can be, VR. There's so many different ways of what hardware is looking like, gesture, etc. Our computing power is getting more and more sophisticated, and what we're doing on the back end with machine learning, as we saw in that cool video, and the tech stacks are getting really sophisticated. Our outputs could be ear cons, they can be switching on and off the lights. We're really seeing voice and conversational AI expand into many, many domains. So across the stack, a lot of sophisticated things are going on. And when I think also about the kind of trajectory of my field and kind of think about multimodal, if you give me this little a rabbit hole more, my field frequently talks about the term multimodal and leveraging different modalities like I was talking about. So leveraging text, how that integrates with touch, audio, computer vision, AR, VR, gesture voice, in medical contexts, how gesture might be the right approach to not touching things, especially during COVID. We were more sensitive to what we touch. Augmented reality and e-commerce spaces, does the sofa fit well in this context? And really be able to ask and talk to different devices like Google Assistant and being placed into different IoT. So we often call this multimodal. The jargon doesn't quite matter. The concept does. And so I have even more examples of people all around the world using this technology in different languages, especially potentially you saw the Ray-Ban and Facebook announcement recently of kind of the AR glasses that are being built out in that space as well. But really, I think when we talk about kind of ethics and how it's being used, there's some really cool applications. My friend in Nigeria is working on kind of how we look at biometrics and computer imaging that matches with kind of semantics or kind of pairing like this motion would be explaining, right, in the future. We're tagging those things or currently. There's a really cool company called Effectiva that was recently acquired by an automotive company, looking at lots of different biometrics and looking at kind of, this is one example, a patent they have, of drivers and using facial and vocal expressions to identify if the driver might be drowsy or intoxicated. And unfortunately in the United States, 25% of all US traffic related deaths are related to alcohol impairment. So really the translation of here's this data set, here's how we're interpreting this data set, and what are the kind of ethical or direct legislation potentially even that could be put in place related to these data sets. So it's really interesting, the implications and the importance, but also how we leverage this data as it evolves and how we can process it. So I have even more slides specifically about natural language processing, which I think a lot of people throw around the term NLP, but you use it. Almost everyone is using this more and more. Here's an example of a bill pay. Many of us, our texts are blowing up with bots and automated material, but on a fundamental level, natural language processing is organizing human language in a sophisticated, data-driven, computational way. I think we would love to throw around jargon, but the concept is very concrete. So what that looks like as far as conversational AI, if you use Google Assistant, one of many different systems, that we're tagging entities and that your bot, book a flight from Los Angeles to Hawaii for less than $300. And the system responds, you got it. What we're doing on the back end to geotag, to look at currencies. This is just a textual-based example, but all the different slots that are going on in these systems behind the scenes. So from the big abstract picture to the more concrete example here of what conversational AI is doing. So the more I looked into this, the more excited and concerned I was. This is my publication called Voice Recognition Still Has Significant Race and Gender Biases. When we look at the data sets being used, when we look at how this data is being leveraged and the kind of implications to immigration, hiring practices, which were mentioned earlier today, there's some really problematic and troubling things. Specifically, my research looks at kind of the implications of breakdowns when we see discrepancies, the dramatic changes this makes to people's experiences. So, a lot of people don't necessarily want to look at big data sets or research this way, but really breaking it down to, if Josh, a white male, gets like an A minus, the discrepancies in me reading potentially the same paragraph in a voice AI system as a white female, that it might interpret as a C plus of how well it interprets my voice. And for a mixed race female, even worse than that, at a D plus. So these seemingly small biases and breakdowns end up with massive, massive repercussions. And so, as I mentioned, that these questions, I'll go back really quickly, these questions of race and gender biases and trying to understand, do I really think that people are, I fundamentally don't believe that people are trying to make biased systems. In fact, people have a lot of incentives to make these systems as good as possible, financially and otherwise. So I really saw an opportunity for us to amplify the work of women and think a lot about women who are already killing it in our fields, but also kind of our pipelines as well as retention of talent. It's really mostly a retention problem, but most people don't even know about our field. So we'll start there. I came up with the idea of Women in Voice. I launched Call for Leadership. A bunch of people signed up. There was a lot of interest right away, and we have scaled really fast since. We're in almost every continent now, launching in Africa soon, I hope, but really partnering with different orgs that share our mission and see what Women in Voice can become and how we are working to shape our ecosystem. So our mission as a 501c3 is to amplify, empower, connect, celebrate women and diverse people in the voice tech field via community, networking, education, events, etc. What I usually say is, our tagline, we're the women who code for voice tech, if you think about us that way. So really specializing in our vertical, in our domain. Yes. So as mentioned, we're all around the world. We're international by design. In 3 years, we've hosted at least 150 events. Come check them out. They're all online these days, and most of them are free and open to the public. I think there's just one thing to talk about the numbers, and there's another thing to see the faces of ambassadors and events going on all around the world. Most of these pre-pandemic, but just to really the community not feeling alone, feelings of belonging and how we support each other is extremely important to retention and opportunities in our field. So as mentioned, this field is evolving fast. There's so many different pieces and components to it that it's hard to imagine one wouldn't be inspired or interested in participating in some ways. If you're interested in jobs in this field, my colleague Chiara Martino has written up kind of job titles of what's going on in our field and kind of the proliferation of what this looks like. So check out jobs titles in Conversational AI. This is a Medium post. You can also listen to it. But just I'm not even going to read out the number of jobs in this space on the design and writing side, on the AI, NLP, machine learning, data science side, speech scientists, voice actors, researchers. People are hiring like crazy for these jobs, and we're seeing so many companies hire for director roles, which typically are hiring for a headcount of 4 to 10. So there's so many jobs, and we just launched a jobs board. In fact, www.womeninvoicejobs.org. Come check it out. So many cool jobs all around the world. And I would be remiss not to mention that Women in Voice, we are building out tons of programming and events for people to participate in and ways for people to join different initiatives we have. So right now I'm running a career accelerator for people to really advance their career and work on that in a dedicated way. We have membership that has tons of really cool perks. Freemium to $100 model, come become a member, pitch events, really supporting female founders and connecting them with investors in our space, as mentioned with Mark Cuban and so forth. That's sponsored by Amazon Alexa Startups. We have 2 more coming up this year. So you can find all this and more at womeninvoice.org. And we have a gala in December. I'm really, really excited about, all virtual, fear not, but really a celebration of the work we've done, especially this year, as well as a fundraiser code. So come check that out, womeninvoice.org/gala. And our influence, reach, and engagement cannot be underestimated. Just people all around the world are finding us across social media platforms. Come check us out in whichever ones you participate in. But we are reaching people in Croatia, Nigeria, like the spread of what we're seeing, of people being really interested in our space and coming to join us, is extremely exciting. So we're still in early days as far as I'm concerned. Women in Voice, let's shape the future of voice together. Thank you so much for listening to this talk. I look forward to connecting with you. Again, please learn more at womeninvoice.org. And if you're interested in sponsorships, admin at womeninvoice.org as well is there. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Joan. This was awesome. Yes, definitely we need representation in voice tech. So this is awesome that you started this movement. And from the numbers, it seems like you've done a fabulous job so far, and it's only going to continue and growing. And I see that even though it says women in voice, but it's open probably to everyone, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting as we look at our numbers. We design for kind of women and gender minorities in our space. Our material is consumed
Yeah.
by like a 60-40 split of people who are tagged as women and men. Like we want to have allies in the room. Our
Yeah.
content, people are pinging me like, can I join? Where can I sign up? How do I participate? So certainly we love allies, and we love that narrative of everyone together building and learning and growing. So we certainly foster that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you, Joan. Thank you.
Thank
This
you so
has been
much.
great. Bye-bye.
Cheers.